Welcome back into another episode of Red Zone Talk. Episode 6, correct, Tim? Episode
Yeah,
6 for the
6.
people?
Yep.
We are happy to be here talking some football. Tim, how excited are you to talk some football here?
It was a fun week too. I'm
It
very
was.
excited.
Yeah, a lot of surprises around the league, honestly. We've had a lot of crazy stuff going on. Unfortunately, a lot of injuries, but we'll get to all that fun stuff as we go along. Obviously, the second episode on video. Hopefully, you guys checked the last one out on YouTube. This one will also be up on YouTube. It does take a little bit longer to post. You may have to wait till around noon on Friday, but it'll be up there.
Yeah.
Also, still out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere we usually are. So
It is video on podcast on not
Spotify,
podcast,
right?
on Spotify, yeah. So you
Yeah.
can view the video on Spotify if you want
True.
to.
If you don't want the YouTube ads and such,
Yeah.
hit us up on Spotify. We're there. So I completely lost my train of thought. But
You ready to jump into it?
yeah, let's just go. Let's
Go. Why not?
So, trivia this week. I got some 3 questions here for you. Hopefully, they're not too easy. I'm sitting at 5-4, so you need a 2-1 week here to tie it up.
Yep.
So, no pressure. If you go 3-0, we're ending the show early. I'm getting out of here. You take the lead, cutting it.
Cutting it.
We'll cut it at 45 minutes after trivia's over. You know?
Yeah.
So, all right. So this one's for the fans out there. I know we got a lot of Cowboys fans, obviously.
God.
So we're gonna kick it to the Cowboys' all-time receiving leaders. I can't remember the number. I told myself 1, 2, 5. 5 of the top 10 guys on the
Okay.
Cowboys' all-time receiving list. Normal list rules apply. 3 strikes.
Okay.
You got 2 hints for your 3 questions. Fire away,
Okay.
my friend.
Michael Irving.
Number 2.
Yeah. Not number 2, really.
Number 2, yeah. You'll know the number 1 guy.
Des Bryant. It's got to be 1 then, right?
Des is actually 5.
Des Bryant's 5. Wow.
5. There's a long time guy at the 1 spot.
Long time guy.
Long time guy.
Okay, so I got 2. Is Terrell Owens there?
T.O. actually not. I was shocked. That is
Really?
strike 1. Yeah, T.O. is
He wasn't there very long, only like 3
yeah.
or 4 seasons. I
yeah,
think.
47 games played. He's 12th. He's just off the list. So
Okay.
it's a good guess. So you got 1 strike.
So if he's off, then there's no way Amari Cooper's there. Is there? How long was Amari Cooper there for? He was about
That's
the
a
same
great
time.
question.
He was about there 4 years. So I don't. If T.O. couldn't do it in 4 years, I don't think Amari Cooper could have done it in 4 years. Well, I guess T.O. was hurt a little bit in Dallas, I think. Man, I am not gonna lie. Like, my Dallas Cowboys knowledge is not stellar.
Yeah, this one might be a little tough, but just as a free one, the receiving yard mark to get here is 3,728 yards.
Oh, I'll guess Amari Cooper then.
Amari Cooper's 9. You're
Okay.
right. He squeaked in there, just over 100 yards in. T.O. is just like 200 yards short, so he's very
okay.
close.
He's on that line. So I got
So
3.
you got 3, 1 strike.
Okay. Man,
There are some memorable names on here. So
is there really? I know.
I mean, there's a couple. I mean, a couple that you wouldn't expect, but
Like pre-90s Cowboys, I just don't think I'm going to know. I'm very tempted to guess Michael Gallup just because he's been there for so long. So I think he could get over the 3,000 yards, but I don't know if I want to throw that. I got 1 strike. I'm going to throw out Michael Gallup. I might as well.
he is unfortunately not here. Probably
Okay.
down in the 18 range or so. He's over 3,000, but
He
about
is.
400 yards short of where we need to be.
Okay. I just figured, you know what I mean? He never probably had 1,000 yards. He had 1 year when he had 1,000 yards, didn't he?
He was close to it, yeah.
Yeah. So
He's 71 games played, which is more than Amari Cooper and T.O. and
T.O. Yeah, he was
Couple
just,
of
he's
the
been
guys.
there for so long. I thought maybe he could sneak in there. Man. Roy Williams won't be here. That's so weird that's who comes to my mind.
that's the one.
Man, there's probably someone one has got to be stupid obvious, and I'm just completely overthinking him. But
It is a bit. I want you to purely think of. I mean, he is one of the best in his position of all time.
best at the position of
He's
all
one
time.
of. He's not the best. I don't even actually. He's not in the conversation for 1, but he's definitely
Okay.
in that top.
I'm
10
my
range.
brain went Jerry Rice, Randy Moss. I'm is he in that group? But I don't. Man, I'm gonna use a hint here just to play it safe with only 3 right and 2 strikes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna use a hint.
All right. So I'm trying to see here. Of the three names there's four names I recognize. One is just a weird thing for me.
Okay.
The number one guy played 255 games with the Cowboys, and he did play into the 2010s. So he was in the Tony Romo era and back.
Oh
Bro,
my God. Okay.
did you
Go
get it?
ahead. I think I know that one.
There's another guy. I was shocked to see him in the top 10, but again, played 106 career games in Dallas, so he was there for a while. Had a really good stint, but
Mhm.
injuries kind of pushed him out afterwards.
Okay.
And then the last guy, I know the name. I honestly couldn't tell you why I know his name,
Why?
but yeah, I think
Can I?
obviously the one guy you should get.
Yeah, Jason Witten.
There he is. Yeah, I
There's
was like, you're
one.
thinking of just receivers. I was like, you gotta
God,
open it up.
yeah, I just like as soon as you said that, you're like, oh, he played I was like, oh, it's Jason Witten. I was like,
Yeah.
who else could it be? But yeah,
Matty C texted me last week when I was struggling with Vince Young, and he's like, I was just screaming in my car, Vince Young, Vince Young.
I
I
know when you
guarantee he's
said
doing the
Vince
same
Young.
thing with
Yeah,
Jason
when
Witten right
you said
now.
Jason Witten, you're just like, yeah, it's got to be Jason Witten, of course. Why wouldn't it be Jason Witten? He was there forever. I guess he played in Las Vegas or Oakland for a season or whatever, but he was there a
Yeah,
long.
the last one's gonna be tough. I won't lie to you.
So I have four, and then you said a guy. So the guy who, like, what era? The guy you said who played there a long time but got pushed out by injuries. Like,
By injuries.
what was his time? Like, can you give me like a like 90s,
Um,
80s,
he was
2000s?
mid 2000s to mid 2010s. His career
Oh,
stretched from '06 to 2015. He did not play his whole career in Dallas. He did play in Cleveland and Philly. You will not remember him anywhere else but Dallas. You think of him only as a Dallas Cowboy, and he's one of those guys that, like,
hmm.
it's just I don't know how to explain him without giving him away, And I could give you a comparison, but I also think it would immediately give away who
Give
it
it
is.
away.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's one of those guys that, like, never really blew you away with talent, but kind of a
Yeah,
fan favorite. I would say he's a fan favorite. I think a lot of guys remember him very
Cole
well.
Cole Beasley's coming to my mind, but that's not who you just described because
Yeah,
Cole Beasley's career was longer.
yeah.
Um, but
I
like
was
he's
surprised he wasn't farther up on the list because he played around 100 games too, I think, and he
Did he?
just
Okay. I was
yeah
gonna say I
didn't.
felt like he was there a long time, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me that he wasn't. He just never was like super,
Yeah, he played
super.
103 games there. Cole Beasley did just 3,200 yards in that time frame.
Man, you're gonna say this name, and I'm gonna be so mad that I just don't know it off the top of my head. But I really am like I can't remember who played alongside Des Bryant because that like is the same era as Des. So
Yeah, it is another receiver. It's not a tight end or
tight
anything
end or
tricky
anything
at
like
all.
that.
So
Yeah, because they don't have a running back. They've only had like traditional running backs there, so it wouldn't be a running back really.
yeah. Hey, Emmett Smith did get 3,000 career yards. He's like all the way down to like 25, but he did get 3,000.
Mm, yeah, man, I just can't think of anyone. Like Roy Williams coming to my mind, but that would have been too early for this guy. Um, and I've said him a bunch, but he was just terrible.
Hold on? Did this guy play for you guys? Why do I feel like he played for? No, he played his whole career in Dallas. There's another guy that played in like the 70s, played 10 years from 73 to 83.
Yeah, I have no shot at that guy.
Probably way back there. For some reason, I thought he played for the Patriots at some point. I think it might just be the name that's drawing me there, but
I don't want to kill too much time, huh?
yeah, no, you're good.
I don't want to kill too much time on this. I think I'm just gonna take the L because I just don't. I can't. It's not gonna come to me.
All right. So to run through the top 10 here,
Yeah.
we got Jason Witten and Michael Irvin at 1 and 2. Tony Hill at 3. Not a guy. Drew Pearson was the other name that I feel like I recognized for some reason from those old Cowboys teams. Dez is at 5. Bob Hayes at 6. That's another name that I remembered, but again, that
Yeah,
was
I think
something
that's a
weird in my head.
Madden like ultimate player or something. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Frank Clark played back in like the 50s and 60s, apparently.
Uh-huh.
The guy that we were looking for, Miles Austin, number 8 on the
Really?
list. Yeah, number 8.
Wow. He
Yeah.
did get hurt.
My
And
player comparison there, like to try to draw you towards it, would have been like Austin Collie in
yeah,
Indy, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like I would connect that dot really
I
quick.
probably wouldn't have. I haven't thought
Okay,
of Austin Miles in such a long time, but yeah, he was there. He was explosive too. He was
yeah.
kind of underrated.
Amari Cooper at 9, Doug Cosby at 10, and CeeDee Lamb actually is the 11th spot. He's already
I didn't
passed
even
T.O.
think about CD, but yeah, I guess only 3 years there. There's no
Yeah,
way he would have hit that mark.
he's got 4 games more played than T.O. and about actually only about 30, 40 yards more than T.O. did too. So
So on pace. I mean, that's a good comparison.
he'll probably pass Mark Cooper this year as long as he doesn't get hurt for sure.
Okay. Good for
So
CeeDee Lamb.
tough start, but
Oh, yeah.
I knew that was going to be a little rough. It's not your favorite team or everything, but I was hoping with 5. I felt like 4 was too easy. Like Dez, Jason Witten.
Yeah.
I felt like 4 was easy. So, all right. So this one, another list. I just went all lists this week. Anytime I like run out of ideas, I'm like, well, the fans love it. I love it. List.
Let's list.
We are looking at the top 20. There's 11 quarterbacks that are in this top 20 range. Single season passing yards of all time. And to be fully honest with you, I didn't even think about how many guys I wanted you to name until just now.
Okay. So 11 guys.
There's 11 guys that fill the top 20 spots for the single season passing leaders of all time. So the best individual seasons.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think you could probably get all 11.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask for all 11. I think I'm going to.
If you give me 3 strikes, I might be able to.
3 strikes, all 11. I think you could get there.
Drew Brees is here.
Drew Brees is here 5 times, maybe 6 actually.
6, yeah.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he was good. Aaron Rodgers is here. Oh,
really? Wait, actually, I'm surprised. Wait a second.
Oh, is he not?
Is he not? Okay. Aaron Rodgers isn't here.
Okay, that's fair.
Where? Wow. No. His top season's all the way down at like number 56, actually. Dang. Which is, by the way, 56 is still 4,600 yards. Yeah. So I'm surprised actually by that too. Shoot.
Is Justin Herbert here?
Justin Herbert is here, number 15 on the list. He eclipsed that 5,000 yard mark in 2021.
That's what I thought. Manning is here.
Yep, Manning obviously number 1 on this list with that 2013 year in Denver.
Brady is here.
Brady is here. Number 3 is his top spot. It also holds the 5 spot.
Okay. Don't think Phillip ever got to that point. Dan Marino is here.
Dan Marino is here, number 12, the only 5,000 yard mark before the 2000s.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He was it was the outlier in this.
Everybody else is actually literally every other season is past 2010. So there's a free hint for you. Yeah. And also the bottom number 20 on this list, 4,933 yards.
So basically a 5,000 yard season.
Just about, yeah.
Matt Ryan is here?
Matt Ryan is here, number 19, squeaked in 2016.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he would be towards the bottom. I'm just trying to think post 2010. Because I don't think Phillip would have done it post 2010. That just doesn't feel like it's right. Yeah, I mean, if I have 3 strikes, I might save that for later. Don't think Stafford ever did it. Because he's been a consistent in that 4,000 yard guy. Unless he did. Actually, no. Did Stafford do it? Stafford's here.
Stafford did do it, yes. Yeah. I'm glad you doubled back on that one. Stafford, number 14, his 2011 season in Detroit.
I was about to say, the 1 year with Calvin Johnson, he probably got there.
Yeah, when Calvin had 1950 that year.
So I'm missing 4 guys.
You have Peyton, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. There's one missing, 2.
I think I have 7.
Yeah, you're 4 guys for 11.
4 guys. I'm forgetting some of the Mahomes is here.
Yes, Mahomes is here. That's 1. Yeah. So 3 left. I may cut you off at 10 because the last one is a bit sneaky. Okay. Just kind of depends on how the strikes plays out. We'll see.
Okay.
I don't want you to lose this one.
1 strike, and then so Mahomes is here. Herbert is here.
There is 1 active guy that you have not gotten yet that is here.
One active guy,
and it's probably the name that does not belong on this list.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm not going to chase that guy then. I was like, Allen's definitely not here. Who am I?
Actually, that's actually kind of a tricky one to tell you that he's active. He's not a starter, but he's active.
Interesting.
He is an active quarterback, not an active starter.
Is he on a roster?
Yes, he is.
Man, that makes me want to guess Nick Foles, but that's just wrong.
That is a bold guess.
Yeah, that's just wrong. I was like, he was only a legit starter for two or 3 years. Man, who am I just blanking on here? I'm trying to think. Oh, no, Cam didn't do it in his MVP season. I'm just trying to run through MVPs in my mind.
Oh, good.
That's why I'm shocked Rodgers isn't here.
I was shocked. Not even in the top 50. That's crazy to me
Yeah,
that
that
he
is crazy.
never got close.
Because I knew Marino would be on here as like the out. Because Marino was thrown for 5,000 yards, like when no one was even coming close to it.
Yeah,
And
1984
yeah,
was the year he did it.
and Breeze has been doing it for like ever.
Yeah.
Oh God, do I need to burn a hint on this? That I'm just like that blanked out on this. Ooh, that's bad. This is like kind of sad that I'm like.
I
Stuck
think you
on
can get
7.
the active guy if you sit here and think about it, because it was a 5,000-yard season. It's not like this guy isn't the guy that's sitting at 20.
Yeah, and he's on an active roster. I'm just
He
trying
is
to think of veteran backup guys who've thrown like that. Because Flacco, I don't think Flacco's here because I don't think he ever broke into that
he's
club.
not on an active roster.
And he's
Right
not
now,
on an active roster. God, I'm trying to think of like who are the like I don't you don't think of like veteran backup
don't
guys.
go super veteran. He's not super old.
He's not
Yeah, I know.
super
I know that
old.
that's throwing you for a loop, but I feel like if I give too many more hints, it's just going to be a cakewalk to get it.
He's not super old, but he's
Yeah.
not a starter. It's not Jacoby Brissett. It's
And
not
he threw for
Jimmy
5,000
Garoppolo.
yards in a season. I mean, it's a very curious case at the quarterback spot.
Huh.
Who's a guy that just puzzles you? You're just like, oh, what a
Chase
fucking
Daniels, but he's not on an active roster. I don't think either.
can't get a beat on this guy. Is he good? Is he bad? I don't know.
Oh, Jameis Winston.
There he is.
Okay.
Jameis Winston, yeah. So, that's insane. Jameis Winston has the 10th best passing season of all time by yardage
Yeah,
marks.
I just started running through NFC teams in my head because I was like, it has to be an NFC guy because all the NFC guys come right to my head. But I was like, it's Jameis. I forgot about that in Tampa Bay.
All right, 2 guys left. One guy holds the number 9, and he's tied with Breeze for the 17 spot, so technically 18, and then you're missing 20. 2 very notable guys, 2 Hall of Fame guys in our books. Well, one's a surefire Hall of Fame, another one questionable, but he is surefire in our book.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I have 1 strike, right?
Yeah, you still got 2 to burn. So
can I go Phillip Rivers?
Yes, you can. Unfortunately, he's not here.
Not here. So that's the second one. Man,
you got it. You're missing.
It's not Eli. I don't think Eli makes a ton of sense. I mean, 4,000 yards. Did Eli ever do that?
Before 933. That is the mark to make this list.
I'm going to use a hint with 2 guys left and only needing to get 1 or
All
maybe
right.
2.
So, yeah, what do I want to do here? How do I fucking give a hint here without giving this away?
I mean, yeah, I was like, you could probably say that colleges, and I'm going to know probably who it is.
Yeah.
So.
Both guys played their entire careers for the teams. Well, both guys played their entire careers for the same team. One of them was not by the team that drafted him, but it was his entire career with the same team.
So
and both
Eli's got to be on there then.
Is that an official guess?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Eli Manning.
He is. He squeaked it. That's the number 20 spot, right at that 4.933 mark.
Damn, good for Eli.
2011.
Shout out all our Giants fans for being a doubter on that.
Yeah.
Can you give me the hint for the other guy? I want to see if I can get it.
I mean, he played for he just retired a couple years back. Played for about 18 seasons, probably. I think if the math is right there, maybe.
No way, it was Big Ben.
Yeah, Big Ben. 100%. Yeah,
Hmm.
Big Ben at number 9, and then also at the 18 spot.
Oh, I guess I wouldn't have thought he threw it like that, but
yeah, Big Ben slung it around quite a bit. As much as I hate to say it. Do what?
What year did Big Ben do it?
His best year was actually 2018. He threw for 5,000, and then 2014
and Le'Veon. Yeah,
yeah, and then 2014 he just missed 5,000 barely.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah.
I threw those guys out early because I was like, yeah, it wouldn't be like
wouldn't be that guy.
Yeah, first thing I did was like, okay, 04 draft class. I was like, couldn't be Eli, couldn't be Ben. Maybe Phillip did it.
That's my favorite thing was like the second thing you say, like, couldn't be Eli, and I was like,
really?
That's the thing is I can't make a face anymore either. You're gonna see me. All right. This one is tough. And then the other thing is I didn't really figure out how I wanted to ask this one.
Okay.
Maybe I'll let you pick. We're looking at most games played, regular season only. So it's just most appearances in regular season NFL games. Now, special teamers litter this list. Mostly kickers. There are a couple punters that litter this list.
Yeah.
Do you want to get, do you want to be able to guess kickers? Because you may have to guess a couple more if we're guessing those. Or do you want to take special teamers out of it and just go position players?
Oh God.
That's the question here.
I don't like all-time kickers that much, so I think I'd rather stay away from them.
Stay away from them. Okay.
Yeah.
So just outright, I'm going to eliminate any special teamer. So like George
Yeah.
Blanda, not here because he was a kicker and a quarterback.
Okay.
And then I think there, like I said, there's
Right,
a ton of kickers. The only other guy that would really get bumped outside of that would be there's some Trey Junkin played. He was a long snapper, tight end, linebacker. He's listed as all three. So he does not count either.
Okay.
So what makes our list here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
10?
Yeah, I think I need probably at least. I'll give me 6 of them.
6. Okay.
Yeah, and that's just a random number I pulled. So
Okay. Tom Brady.
number 6.
Brett Favre.
Well, number 1 on our list. Brett Favre is here as well. Yes.
Yeah. Trying to think long careers. Most of these guys got to be quarterbacks because quarterback's the only thing you can play for a long time and play pretty consistently without getting hurt. I'd imagine at least.
There, I'll give you a free hint on this one. Of the guys we are looking at, you've named 2 of the 3 quarterbacks actually already. There's quite a few position players on here that I was surprised by.
Man, is Breeze going to be here? Well, he got hurt for a year and then split time with Philip Rivers and
And the mark to make our list is 271 games played.
Oh, okay. Oh, now that you've given
that narrow it down?
Perfect. Oh, yeah.
Give me another free one. Peyton Manning's not here.
I didn't think he would be.
He just misses 266. So
he was hurt for one whole season.
Yeah, if not.
And then he retired decently young. Like they didn't play into his late 40s.
Yeah. Decently young is 38 now for quarterbacks.
Yeah. Is the I have 2 out of the 3 quarterbacks. Is the other quarterback like post 2000?
Yes.
He is.
His whole career was post 2000.
Okay. Couldn't have been Manning. Man, Eli retired too young. I mean, we're going back. This list is like a repeat of the last list here.
Yeah.
That could be Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers played for a long time, and I don't think he ever got hurt. So I'm going to go Philip Rivers.
Philip Rivers is not here. I am kind of surprised. I don't think that's a terrible guess. Let me see if I can scroll down and see where he landed at. If you want to keep guessing.
Because, yeah, like he wouldn't have been – I don't think he ever got hurt for a whole season. Maybe he missed games here and there.
Yeah, I mean, he is actually way down this list. Tied with Terrell Suggs, 244 games. So, yeah, he missed it by about 20.
Okay.
Which isn't really a lot when you think about it.
Because, I mean, he was like 41 on the Colts. Trying to think of quarterbacks who played in their 40s. Like, it's just so hard because Brady set the bar so high that it's like
he did, yeah.
Him and Favre played forever, so it's like who else played that long?
I'm probably gonna bump down the number of guys you need because I think 6 is a little too high. I'll probably set it like maybe 4.
It's also possible. Like once we get into positional players, it's. I mean,
yeah, I think there's one guy I think is super obvious. He had a very, very long career.
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice is here. That's exactly the guy I was talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
It's so crazy when you look because obviously he retired for a year or 2 here, but it's listed he played from 1985 to 2004.
Yeah.
Which is,
I mean, as he came back, played for Seattle
and Oakland.
So that was like a weird stretch of his career. He was on my like short. This quarterback is really trying to figure out which quarterback this could be because Big Ben didn't play. I mean, Big Ben I guess played longer than. Did he play? Yeah, he played another season past Philip Rivers, I think, or maybe they retired the same season.
Big Ben did get hurt quite a bit, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he rammed his motorcycle into the wall without a helmet, so that's
true.
That's not the guy you want to pick for an all-time.
He's surprisingly still, like, with all the kickers included, he's 57 on the list. But
Eli had that Iron Man streak, so it makes me want to guess Eli. Because they benched him. Was it for Geno, I think, in New York? And everyone was pissed because it broke his streak.
Yeah.
But was that
because they were asked that year and they were like, oh, we're going to bench him instead of just playing those other 6 games.
Man, could it have been Eli? But I think Oh, and he stayed on a year with Daniel Jones, didn't he?
I think so.
Oh, but
After
yeah, that won't count. Well,
it
it
won't
has
count
to
because
be. It has to be a
he has to
starter.
appear. He has to appear in the game, which
Hmm.
of course is.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know if being a holder counts as appearing, but
He wasn't be a holder; it would be a punter
uh,
at that point.
yeah, too late in the year.
Um. Hmm. Damn, man, that
So
quarterback's really bugging me.
of the guy, I'll give you one hint. You've already said his name.
Hmm. Oh, I
You
have
have said you have mentioned him once along the way. Um,
Eli, Ben, Phillip. Yeah, the only three quarterbacks I think I mentioned. Oh, that and Drew Brees, but it can't be Brees. It can't be
got him.
Ben.
There is an offensive lineman here. There's a
Okay.
corner here. Two defensive ends, a linebacker, and I'll actually open it up to the top 11 guys. There's two tight ends here as well.
Oh God, this is gonna get ugly.
It might.
Man, it makes me think like could Jason Witten be on this list because he played forever, and then it also makes me think about uh, Jimmy Graham because he just kept like playing on irrelevant
It's
teams
true. I wonder where.
for a long time, but he can't. I don't think he was a consistent enough starter on those teams to probably get. Um, I'm gonna go Eli Manning for the other quarterback. Is that right?
Eli Manning is not here, unfortunately.
Damn.
Down the list quite a ways.
And I already guessed Philip Rivers, right? That was my other strike.
I believe so. Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. Even if it wasn't, he's not here, so don't
He's
burn
not
one.
here. Yeah. So it has to either be Breeze or Roethlisberger.
Yes,
Man, I'm gonna go Breeze. I guess Breeze played forever too. Yeah, Breeze
Breeze
played
is
for the
here.
42.
Yes, Breeze
So
is
that
our
gives me
third quarterback.
so that gives me four, and I need one more.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, you got three quarterbacks of Jerry Rice. So you need one guy.
either
You got
tight end, two tight
two
ends.
tight ends, an offensive lineman, two edge guys, and a corner.
The only
Um,
offensive lineman I can think of is Joe Thomas, but I think he retired decently young.
yeah.
Tight ends could be Jason Witten, could be Jimmy Graham. He played forever. Um, like I don't know. I like Shannon Sharp started playing in the 80s and he played all the way to like 2002, 2001. Like no, I don't think he played in the 80s. Yeah, he did. He played in the 80s.
Question is, as a sixth round pick, or was he undrafted? How quickly did he start though? You know, how many
Yeah,
years was he
that's true. Well,
involved?
I think it was year 2, I think, because got drafted as a wide receiver and they switched him, I think, to tight end.
That's weird.
Um God, DN. God, that could be so many guys.
I
That's
think
just
the tight ends are probably the easier ones to get.
okay. The DN could be Michael Strahan too. That's who I think of when you say the DN. Um, he also just feel like he played forever. Um, man, longevity. It's not Antonio Gates. He got hurt a season. Just trying to think of like reliable tight ends.
Gates is actually a lot higher on this list than I thought he was, but he is
Yeah,
not. He's not. He's not one of the two guys we're looking for.
yeah, I didn't think so. Tony G played. It could be Tony. You know what? I'm gonna guess Tony Gonzalez because he played forever.
Yeah, you scraped it in. He was our when I opened it up to 11 for our second tight end. He's
He's
the second
11.
tight end.
Yeah,
Yes.
because he played for Atlanta and Kansas City. So
Yep.
he played with Matt Ryan, I'm pretty sure, for a year
hmm
or two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he played from 1997 to 2013.
Yeah, it's
So
nuts.
uh,
Who are the other guys?
Jason Witten was our 10th guy. He was our other tight end.
He was. Okay,
Yes.
damn. I
The
almost guessed him.
the second you were like, man, this is a lot like the last one. I started looking. I was like, holy shit, it kind of is a lot like the
It kind
last
of
one.
is.
The other guys we're looking for. This is actually a super fun fact. It's crazy. Clay Matthews for linebacker and Bruce Matthews also the offensive lineman. So
Oh,
two of the
okay.
Matthews brothers on this list. Bruce Smith.
Okay, Bruce Smith. Did Clay Matthews, didn't he finish his career out with the Rams or did he play after that?
That's Clay Matthews Jr. We're looking for his dad, Clay Matthews Sr.
Oh, got
Yeah,
you. Okay. I was like,
yeah,
man, that Clay Matthews? I feel like
yeah.
he didn't play that long. But
No,
yeah.
yeah. Clay Matthews Sr. and Bruce Matthews. Bruce Matthews was the offensive lineman we're looking for.
Yeah. Never worked
Bruce
out.
Smith and Jim Marshall were the two DNs.
Yeah.
And then Daryl Green at
Okay.
corner was our other guy.
Did
Those were all
Bruce
the.
Smith, did he play for anyone besides the Bills?
I
Like,
don't believe
did he stretch
so.
that career out longer than I realized?
Yeah, he played from 85 to 99 in Buffalo and then 2000 to 03 in Washington, actually.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have known the Washington years.
I
So
didn't know he played for anywhere other than Buffalo, so.
yeah,
Yeah, of course, kickers littering this list. Can you take a wild stab at any of the three
like
kickers that
Morton
are the top three?
Anderson has
That's
got to be
one.
on here. Yeah, that's not shocking. He played for a century. Adam Vinatieri's got to be on there.
Number two.
Um, has Johnny Heckler? Is there an active guy on the list? Is Johnny Heckler on this list as like a punter?
Uh, no,
Okay,
and they would be down here. Let's see. There is an active guy. He falls at 51. He's a tight end,
he's a
actually.
tight end.
And it's not Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, it's not Jimmy Graham. Who's an old tight end at 51? I have no idea. Who's that?
Mercedes Lewis has played since
Oh,
'06,
that makes
actually.
sense. Yeah. That checks out. I believe that. I'll
And then
buy that.
Matt Prater down at 97 is the next guy.
Okay. But
So,
yeah, like kickers and punters, I would have
yeah, I
struggled
mean,
because there's a lot of old guys. Who's the Raiders kicker? God, why can't I think of his name? Seabass. Would he have
Seabass.
been here or no?
He is, yeah, number 19, which is funny because a spot above him is the punter he played with his whole career, Shane Leckler.
Shane Leckler. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually nuts. And they actually overlap their whole careers from 2000 to 2017.
Well,
Leckler and Seabass.
they got drafted in the same draft class. I'm pretty
Yep,
sure. I think Seabass was a first round pick, and then I think they took Leckler in like the third or
the
fourth.
third. Yeah,
Yeah.
such a what a Raiders draft class.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the Patriots. I mean, there was several teams this year who took kickers and punters in the middle of the draft. Because I
True.
think the 49ers took a kicker and a punter back to back picks in the third and fourth
The
round.
third, a first round pick on a kicker is crazy. Though.
And then now that never happened. Like it never happened.
Never would it happen. That GM would be fired
uh,
immediately.
Patriots took a kicker and a punter in their middle rounds too. So
I don't think it's a terrible thing.
not in the third, no.
Get a guy on contract, like you don't have to sit there and worry about trying to pay an undrafted free agent every year. And
Yeah. No, it's crazy because like people like don't realize like I don't know, it's so weird to think about like having to worry about your kicker. Like this is the first time in my lifetime as a Patriots fan that like we've had a rotation of kickers.
you're like, man, I don't know if we're gonna make this one.
Well, like we had Adam Vinatieri forever for a long time, and then as soon as he left, we had Steven Gostkowski.
Gostkowski came over, yeah,
came over. So it's like we had two guys who played 7+ years as our kicker. You know what I mean? Like just
and we're one of, if not the best kicker in the league at the time.
yeah,
too,
top 5 kickers in the league. So like
that's how I feel in the last 8 to 10 years now with Justin Tucker. So
yeah, and then we brought in Nick Folk, and I was like, oh okay. And then like this year with the rookies, it's just been. I mean, they haven't missed or done anything crazy, but it's just been weird to be like, oh yeah, like
oh, trust me, I remember the Billy Cundiff days, don't you?
yeah,
I remember the infamous wide left in Gillette too to boot.
it's like it's just crazy. Like thinking back, like in my lifetime, there's been like
You've
4
never had to think about it.
kickers. Yeah, like
You're like, oh, 55? Fuck it.
just throw them out there. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
These guys have all kicked game winners in Super Bowls. Like
Yeah.
whatever. This doesn't.
That's
mean
true.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
True.
whatever. I guess they'll be fine. Gostkowski was actually like terrible in the Super Bowls for whatever reason.
Really? I didn't know that.
I think he missed I think in the 2 or 3 Super Bowls he played, I think he missed a field goal in like 2 of them or something crazy like that.
Wow.
Not as good, not as clutch as one would think, but when it mattered, he made it. So
True.
we still
He didn't cost you the game at all ever. So
yeah. Well, cool. You ready to start talking some headlines and stuff like that?
bring it on.
I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot of people talk about this, but I feel like this is one of those times we don't always want to talk about what the national media. I feel like I'm shaking my camera so much right now, and it's
a little
just
bit.
my hands on my desk.
Everybody just look at me instead. It's okay.
Yeah, just look on the other side of the screen. But this is one of those ones that I feel like you can't not talk about. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I thought you were
my name is just covered up by how the light's hitting the wall, and I just wanted to see if
it's not. It's actually in the other corner for me.
Oh,
and nice. I don't think they show this. I think this is just for you and me.
Oh, well, now people are confused. But
I could be wrong, but I don't think it showed up before. But now we're getting into something other off of here. But we normally don't always talk about things that everyone else is talking about, right? We try to make the show different and unique for you guys. But the whole Justin Fields situation is something we just absolutely have to talk about. we're obviously recording this on Thursday. So the 49ers and Giants are playing right now. But now we're more into um, the aftermath of this. Now it's kind of all played out. But
Yeah.
Justin Fields made some comments talking about his coach. You know, he said on Wednesday he feels like he played robotic against Tampa Bay while adding why he thinks that's the case. And this is now I'm going to start the quote here. So begin quote. It could be coaching. I think they're doing their job and they are giving me what to look at. But at the end of the day, I can't be thinking about when the game comes. Fields says, I feel pressured. I feel prepared myself throughout the week. And when the game comes, it's time to play free at that point, thinking less and playing more. Um, Boy, is that like I think it's one of those situations too where we always rail on quarterbacks for being robotic, right? Giving the generic answers time and time
we
again.
it is expected.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not supposed
expected.
to be candid or
Yeah,
controversial as a quarterback. You have to be the even keeled. Hey, we won. My teammates were great. Hey, we lost. It's my fault. That is your job.
yeah. Um, and and so it's one of those things that like I hate to hammer a guy for telling the truth, right? And I think there's a lot of truth in what he said.
I agree.
I don't think you can say it. That's like the
Definitely not
thing.
week not going into week 3. It's
Yeah,
not a conversation you can have at the
you
podium.
never say someone looks fat. Like if they ask you, "Does this make me look fat?" You just never say it, whether it's the truth or not, right?
Yeah.
Like you just are not. You're not allowed to say it, and um, yeah, I mean, part of it was the way the guy worded the tweet about the article about him like biting the pin off the grenade and then throwing it inside the building. Like that was
Yeah.
like
It's
all
a little
way,
excessive. He
yeah,
didn't come out and be like, "Well, if the coaches weren't so effing terrible, I'd play better." Like he said coaching and that was it. Like honestly, like he
yeah.
didn't even touch on him that much. He just said it might be coaching and then he
So
moved on.
yeah, like the quote was definitely taken out of context, right? So
Yeah.
like I feel bad for Justin Fields. Like it's one of those weird moments where it's like like I feel bad for him because definitely what he said was taken out of context, but in the same breath, he shouldn't have said what he said
Yeah,
anyways.
it was
Even with context, it's still bad.
taken out of
So,
context and partially true, but it's just you got to pick your spots for it. And there's really
yeah.
never a spot for a quarterback to do that. Definitely not in week 3.
Yeah, I was about to say the other issue is it's way too early, right?
Yeah,
Like if it's week 6 or something and you're 0-6, like just fire away. No one cares. But
yeah,
like 0-2, there's still a lot of opportunity to turn the season around, right? It
yeah,
is by no means over. Um,
yeah,
if it's week 6, sure. Yeah, you're 0-6, say whatever you want. Who cares?
yeah,
You're not staying, Eberflus is not staying. Like there's just it's just no opportunity for it. So
yeah.
I think it's an interesting. What you have some thoughts here?
Yeah, I think both sides are right and wrong, to be honest with you, because I do think that Fields is right, and I don't know if you saw what Greeny had said about it. I think he kind of hit the nail on the head from Justin's point of view, where the Bears have just not been in sync between coach, quarterback, and GM in like the last 5 to 6 years, right? They
Yeah.
took Mitch, and the coach really wasn't great, and then they moved on from Mitch, and then
I'm gonna disagree with that, but that's okay.
what
I
are you
know.
talking about, Nagy or?
Yeah, dude, Maggie and Trubisky made the play. They were one made field goal away from winning a playoff game
Yeah, the
together. Like
double
that
doink. That's
that
true.
that combination wasn't as bad, I think, as
So
people.
what
Now
happened?
it got ugly at the end, right? Like
Yeah.
I think Mitchell Trubisky is the classic, and I think their careers are somewhat mirrored, right?
Mhm.
Of like the first coach that they work with is flexible, right? They want to like work around their skill strengths. And Matt
Yeah.
Nagy did that with Trubisky his first year was like, hey, we're going to let you do what you do well. And the
Check
team saw
down. Yeah.
success. Yeah, check
Yeah.
down, run the ball a lot. You're going to be
Game
mobile,
manage.
use your feet. Yeah, be a game manager and move with your feet, right? Be a weapon out there. And as time went on, Nagy wanted him to evolve into a pocket passer, right? Like, I don't know how many times this story has to be told before we finally go, that's never worked. Like, there hasn't been many success. Like RG3, kind of the same kind of career down that path, but RG3 was more injury based than I
Yeah.
think it was. Yeah, evolution.
And where they stumbled was after everything that had failed there, right? And they move on from Trubisky. They're like, we're going to give Nagy one more shot with Justin Fields.
Yeah,
And so now you've stunted Fields because you canned his coach after the first year and you've now brought in another guy But who knows if Eberflus, like if Fields is the
Yeah.
quarterback that Eberflus wants in his offense going forward. So I do think there's some partial truths, right? I don't think it's not a news story that the Chicago Bears are not greatly ran, especially when it comes to the quarterback position. But again, we've all seen the clip. We have all seen the clip of him absolutely just missing the wide open touchdown, right? They're right down there in the red zone. He's working through his progressions, and the tight end comes over, the safety bites away from him, and he's got a touchdown by like 10 to 15 yards. And he just steps up into the pocket, eats a sack. And that's stuff that it's harder to pin on coaching. That's decision making stuff. And I do think the way he worded it somewhat made sense. I definitely don't think that he's probably had a coach in the NFL that has really instilled confidence with him, right? Like what
Yeah.
I want for a guy like Justin Fields is what Mike McDaniel did for Tua last year. When you're watching him on the side, he just instills confidence in him. And
Yeah.
is there a lot of times where he might throw a pick and make a mistake? Yes, but I would much rather have a quarterback be confident and make mistakes than be a robot and miss open throws because he's so worried about making mistakes.
I know we've talked about Eberflus a lot. What is his background? He was a defensive guy,
He
correct?
was a defensive guy, from what I remember. Yeah,
Yeah, I
uh,
think that's always been the issue
he's
here.
Indy's defensive coordinator, right? If I remember right,
Yeah,
last year.
yeah, 18 to 21,
And
Indy's
again,
coordinator.
I don't know when teams are going to realize that the defensive. It's hard to justify the defensive head coach in today's day and age, right? There are obviously going to be some because there are very high end ones that are going to work and make it work. You cannot hire a defensive head coach when you have a young, unsure quarterback.
Yeah.
I need a guy that's going to come in and connect with him and bring everything I can get out of Justin Fields.
Well, I mean, we've seen it, right? Like I don't think the whole narrative you can't win with a defensive coach I think is wrong, but I think with the right case scenario, I think you can have a defensive coach, right? Like I
Yeah,
think Brian Flores will be a head coach again in the NFL,
I
but I
think it'll
think
work.
it'll work, but he just can't have a first year, second year rookie QB. I think he has to come into a spot like I don't know. I'm trying
Like
to
a
think of
vet.
one
New
like a
Orleans.
New Orleans. Yeah, come into a spot with a vet and take over. Let somebody run that offense that's familiar with that quarterback. Kind of
Yeah,
like what the Jets did this year, right? Like, okay, hey, the young QB is not working with the defensive coach. Let's go get a vet. Like,
yeah.
I think that is kind of the path to success when it comes to that stuff. Because
Mm.
I think a lot of these guys are viable head coaches in the NFL. I just think it has to be in the right
The right
situation.
spot. And this is the definition of the wrong spot for
Yeah.
Eberflus and Fields. So both sides are right, both sides are wrong. And it just sucks. Like I feel bad for Justin Fields because I do think he's getting a lot of unnecessary hate. Because when you sit there and look at the background of it, you're like, have the like oh they brought DJ Moore in, and we talk about how important coaching is all the time. And he's
Yeah.
had two coaches in 4 years. Is that right? 4 years, 3 years, 2 year?
He's been
Yeah,
there. This is year 3,
yeah.
and then
So
he's had 2 coaches.
two coaches in 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a great ratio, right? So they've done well with the roster. I do like what Ryan Poles has done with the roster a lot, but I mean, I think it's just too little, too late because you can't. They're probably not going to move off Eberflus at the end of the year, and even if you do, like trying to find the right guy for Fields now seems pretty. Like it had to have happened this offseason, right? And it didn't. I feel like the window's kind of closed on it, unfortunately. I do think if the right team gets him in the building, that he can succeed still. I think he has all the talent in the world, but I think his confidence is shot, especially after this week. I mean, he got railroaded. That was probably the number one story and definitely the number one play that I saw on repeat all over social media was him missing that wide open touchdown. So, I mean, he's getting railroaded a bit by the media, so I can understand, the frustration. But again, man, and also like you're like, oh, you can't say that week 3. And Greeny mentioned this too. Like this kid's played 3 years in the NFL, and we don't really know almost anything about Justin Fields' personal life. Like he has been exactly what you want from a quarterback at the podium for 2 years now. Extremely mature, in and out, gives your generic answers, your team guy, and he goes out despite being absolutely hammered and having two coaches and everything, and all the reason in the world to go up there and be like, "What do you want from me?" And he's eating it on the chin. And finally this week, it may have gotten a little bit of the better for him, or the better of him. But I do still think he is talented.
Yeah,
But
I think people were piling on a little bit when they were talking about like how he was never going to get drafted in San Francisco. But it wasn't a match there, right? Like he
I
could never throw with timing. Like that wasn't something like that's not the kind of quarterback that Kyle Shanahan is going to chase.
I would have loved it. Well, here's the thing: you say that, but they
Mhm.
drafted Trey Lance. Like,
Right.
how
But they
much
thought
of
they
a
could mold Trey Lance. Trey Lance wasn't a developed QB. They thought they could develop Trey Lance in the ways they
I
wanted.
would have rather taken just if I'm gonna have to mold a guy, why not take the better of the two guys to mold? You
Okay,
know?
but I'm also under this conspiracy theory to be
Okay.
very clear of that when it came to that draft, Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones, but John Lynch wanted Trey Lance, and then John Lynch won and got Trey Lance. So,
Yeah,
like that's I mean, whether that's the truth or not, we'll never know.
I
But
agree
like
with you.
that's kind of what I believe happened, right?
I 100% agree with you because
Yeah,
again, who has the power to make the move to 3 to go get Lance?
yeah,
John Lynch did.
Lynch,
You know,
yeah.
like there's no way Shanahan wanted to go up to 3 to get Jones.
And I think we're starting to see the turn of like Shanahan's probably going to have a little bit more of a say of like, okay, Brock Purdy's the guy we're going to pay him. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a little bit more of that. I don't think they're going to be as rushed when it comes to that. You know what I mean? I think I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think Kyle Shanahan's going to have more input when it comes to the
As he
groceries,
should,
if you
as he
will. You know what I
should. Like
mean?
John Lynch is a damn good GM, but when you have a head coach that's talented, he should be somewhere in the process. Should be a heavy part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a top coach. Like who do you want on the field?
So
So
I'm just saying I don't know if the Justin Fields situation works out any better in like a place like San Francisco, but I think there's a lot of places that it could have worked out way, way, way better than it did.
way, way,
So
way better. Yeah, 100% better. Definitely a lot of places that could have ended better. I think it would have worked out in San Fran just because of like I think Shanahan and Lynch would have been like, we're gonna make it work.
we're gonna
Like
go all in on this style of play. Yeah.
yeah, they made it work with pick 255.
Yeah.
So
But I think maybe San Francisco's the bad example, but I think more of the Jets. Like I think if he's on the Jets, I still think they'd probably trade for Aaron Rodgers at this point, right? I don't think Robert Saleh
probably
is changing his trajectory of how good his career is.
no, no.
So it's all about where you're drafted. It
It
really, really makes a world of difference and how much that team commits to your style of play, right? Like the Ravens did the best I think I've ever seen.
no
Like
one's
they're
even
the
gotten close.
yeah, like they've had the most success in recent history. I think what's I'd say since Cam Newton with a rushing quarterback because they were able to go all in and kind of build a system around that QB strengths.
To stylistically go from Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson is the only reason Lamar worked is because of what Baltimore did, right?
Yeah.
If you stick Lamar Jackson in Justin Fields' shoes, same draft class, same draft spot to Chicago, same coaching issues they had, I don't know if it works, right? He's a more talented quarterback than Justin Fields. And that's my favorite. Everyone's like, oh, what if the Bears drafted Patrick Mahomes at 2 instead of Mitchell Trubisky? And I'm like, I think his talent would have shown through it in the end because I do think Patrick Mahomes is that talented. But we have no idea. It definitely wouldn't have been as good. I can tell you that he wouldn't have 2 Super Bowl rings by now because he'd be playing in Chicago. And
Yeah.
that team outside of him is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. So where you get drafted heavily, heavily, heavily affects where you go. I don't think it 100% decides because I do think a guy like Johnny Manziel was just destined to fail. I think
Yeah, yeah.
he was he didn't have the mentors and he just wasn't ready adult wise. He had a lot of other things going on right off the field. I think he would have failed no matter where he went. Especially like Cleveland just accelerated the process, right? Like he was going to be a long shot to be successful. And they were like, well, we're just going to accelerate this process and send you to the absolute dumpster fire team of the Cleveland
Yeah.
Browns to boot, So
All right, let's jump into the next thing here. Let's talk about the Trayvon Diggs and kind of what that means for Dallas.
yeah,
I think the Trayvon Diggs ride has been one that we've kind of ridden on opposite ends, right? I think his rookie year when he was having all that success, I think we were maybe on the lower end on him.
100%. Yeah.
And then I think last year we both kind of were like, okay, I like this guy a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think last year we started to shape and see him as a true number one corner. I think he got way, way, way better with
Way better.
I was
Way
going to
better.
say Dan Campbell, but that's just wrong.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn, thank you. I knew it was so close. I was like, that's incorrect. But with Dan Quinn, I think this is a big loss, right? I think to lose your number one corner on honestly what the best part of the Dallas Cowboys team is their defense, right? Like that's what makes them who they are.
It's
So
not. It is the best part of that team.
yeah,
They have the number one defense in the NFL right now. So
I'm very curious
they've
what a
allowed 10
different weapon.
points in 2 weeks, and they play the Cardinals this week.
Yeah,
So
so they're going to have some interesting, challenges going forward with the cornerback position because I think Gilmore has shown he is past his prime.
he's
And
not
maybe
terrible, but definitely nowhere near as good as he was.
he's okay. I don't know if I love him. I didn't really love him in the spot he's in, and now he's going to have to play a bigger role, and I don't
Yeah.
love that anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel bad. It's terrible. We don't root for these injuries. We're going to talk a lot about injuries today, but yeah,
Yeah.
you never want something like this to happen, even to Cowboys fans. But
Yeah.
I was kind of excited to see what the Cowboys could be about, but now I feel like they have a bailout of we didn't have our number one corner. So
Yeah. And I hope that they can just rally and keep, because they've played super well. And
yeah,
I think they should be able to keep the momentum rolling, but there's no doubt that it's a large loss. But also, any Cowboys fans that are trying to hang it up after this injury, let's relax a bit. All right. I get it. Yes.
they're still a playoff team for
Yes,
sure.
it's going to hurt. Yes, you're going to feel it in the long run. Yes, you're going to miss him come playoff time, especially right when you get into those high powered shootouts and you need to stop. You're going to miss him. But this does not take, this is not like a 4-win flip for them, right? They don't go from 12 wins to 8 wins off this, right? It is a 1 or 2 game stretch probably, unless they let it be a 4-game thing, right? I mean, if you get in your head about it, yeah, you're going to start to lose a ton of games. If Micah Parsons is sitting there screaming at whoever they have lined up next to Gilmore every time, and they let it become a problem, yeah, it's going to ruin your season. And honestly, I think it might happen because it's kind of Dallas's MO is the worst enemy of the Dallas Cowboys is the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the day.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, if they could just I think they'll be okay. Obviously a loss, but it's not like, now if I think, Micah goes down instead of Trayvon, we're having a completely different conversation right now. That one might be a 3 or 4 game spread, flip. But yes, it's going to hurt, but there's no need to panic, right? It's a talented unit with a great defensive coordinator to boot.
Yeah, they were never going to lose because of the defense. They're going to lose because of Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. But we're going to talk more about Mike McCarthy. So I don't want to dive into Mike McCarthy here.
My favorite.
Did I put it on there? No, I didn't. But we'll talk about it anyway. As long as we have time, we'll talk about it. I had a really interesting.
I'm gonna start speed running. I gotta get to this. I gotta talk about my favorite guy.
I have a really. It'll be on the end of Pump the Brakes. I just don't know why I didn't write it down. But I think I didn't write it down because I wanted to kind of surprise you.
Surprise me with it. Hey, I'm excited. It works.
It's gonna kind of the comparison's gonna scare you a little bit. Okay, let's talk about the running back position for a little bit here. It's just been a brutal season for running backs. Saquon Barkley is going to miss anywhere from, I think, like 3 to 4 games. They're saying he might play this week, but everything I've read, it seems like he's going to at least be out like 2 to 3 weeks, something like that, maybe 2 to 4. Nick Chubb going down with a season out for the year. JK
out for the year.
Okay, I get all the Ravens running backs confused, whether it's JK, Gus Edwards, or Lamar.
Yeah.
All your running backs are just the same.
I hate you.
But yeah, J.K. Dobbins out for the year, right? We've seen nothing but injuries from this. So I don't want to talk about the injuries at running back position, but I want to talk about kind of the fix for it going forward. I have a really interesting proposal. Oh. I genuinely, I think the Christian McCaffrey, James White style, like not to compare those guys as the one, but that play style of running back, I honestly think is going to be the future. Guys like Jamar Gibbs, Travis Etienne,
Austin Eckler.
Yeah, Austin Eckler. Oh, Eckler. Yeah, Eckler a little bit.
He's a damn good receiving back.
He's a good receiving back. He can't play like the only reason I didn't want to put him right there was because Etienne and Gibbs you could probably play in the slot. Weirdly,
okay, I see.
I don't know. Yeah. You probably could play Eckler in the slot, but
maybe. I mean, I put him up there because he has had like 8 or 9 receiving yards the last 2 years.
He definitely deserves to be in the conversation of the kind of running back that I would personally pay, right?
I see what you're saying though. The hybrid guys that you're going to be able to play at multiple spots.
Yeah. Like you're gonna see a lot more of the 4 wide receiver, 1 running back, and then you know probably go to a 5 wide receiver set and keep that running back in, but he's going to play wide receiver more,
Yeah,
right?
play outside. Like,
So you can motion him in to come back and play as running back. You can motion him out to play as wide receiver.
it's kind of
Um,
sick.
I think that's going to be the future of the position, and I think we're going to see a shift in that. It's going to take a while because college football is far behind that. You don't see a ton of running backs playing that style. College football is still very your classic ground and pound
Ground and
type
pound,
thing.
yeah.
But I think the next wave, the next generation of running backs that we're already starting to see as rookies, right? You're gonna have to be a great pass catcher if you want to see a second contract. Because to be honest with you, those guys don't get hurt as much.
Yeah, unless you're Derrick Henry, you're not. It's not a sustainable play style.
And I honestly, we weren't going to see anything like Derrick Henry. Nick Chubb was going to be the closest thing that we were going to see. And now with that injury, I think it might be the cap or the nail in the coffin when it kind of comes to that style of running back, right?
Yeah.
The Superman doesn't exist anymore, kind of fallacy when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I haven't heard what the full report of like what Nick Chubb, like what the injury is. Obviously, we know he's out for the year, but that's the same knee that he blew out in Georgia
I
in
think it was a torn
2015.
ACL.
Was it just a torn ACL?
I want to say it was potentially
Because
some. It was
I don't know if you remember the one in 2015, but he blew out his ACL, his MCL, and his PCL in 2015 at Georgia. So honestly, the
yeah.
fact that he's had this good of a career, looking back on that injury, is insanity. But the fact that this is going to be the same knee again, it worries me. Like, I mean, that's some scary stuff. 2 ACL tears in the same knee is one thing, but like he has a chance to like have multiple of the same ligaments torn 2 separate times in the same knee. You know, like that's it's going to be something that's going to be very tough to bounce back from, I think. But
I don't think it says exactly is what I'm reading here.
if you just we're sign running backs to contracts, right? Maybe start getting them a little bit more money. If you play 15 games, 15 to 17, fully guaranteed, something like that, hit a certain game cap, and all of a sudden we're up, right? And well, actually, not even play that you're healthy for, right? If they healthy scratch you because they're trying to save money, that doesn't count. If you're
Yeah.
healthy and active, more money, right? I think something maybe along those lines. And I think it gets a little chippy because at that point, you know, like you're just paying him based off injury, you know, like it's not a guy's fault if he gets hurt. And I understand that part of it, but
Yeah.
I think it's better than what we have now. I can tell you that much, you know,
I think we
like
have to shorten the rookie running back contract. I think in general.
100%.
So I think if you,
I think that's the start of this.
yeah, I think if you play that position at like the most you can get is 3 years if you're a first rounder, and then 2 years if you're anything
2 years
else.
if you're anything else.
Yeah, and then gives these guys a chance to go back to the table. But
The question is, how does that affect? I'm curious to see how that affects the draft stock, right? Do you see more running backs in the first because they want the extra year, or do you see?
no, I don't think it'll change. I think guys like Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, you'll see more of a push to like we want that extra year with. But I think anyone else who falls outside of that cat, like I don't think like a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes in the first anymore.
Yeah, I would agree. He shouldn't have went the first when he did, anyways.
Sony Michel won't be a first round pick.
So my question is, like, you're talking about that next evolution, the next generation of running backs, and that style of play. Do you feel like when that becomes the norm, are running backs now regularly drafted in the first round again? Obviously, we may not see, you know, at 2, 3, 4, but like, are we going to see 1 or 2 every single year as long as it's that style of back?
I think once you see it more as the weapon, right? Like we saw 2 guys this year, the 2 guys who were drafted in the first rounds, I would consider them better weapons than running backs, right? Like, or lean towards that conversation of weapons over running backs.
Sell them short to call them running backs.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like
You're
selling
not
the skill set short there.
Yeah, they have the capability of doing a lot and being a lot of a threat for your team. I didn't love ETN that much, and honestly, now that I've seen him more out of college and more in the pro game, like the way that they use him is like perfect, right? Like they're gonna draft Tank Dell and not Tank Dell, Tank Bigsby. You know what I mean? They're gonna always have a guy behind him who's gonna do the 3rd and 1, the goal line carries, situations like that. But ETN is going to get 70% of the snaps, you know?
The guys that ruin his fantasy value. That's who they're.
Yeah,
That's the thing that sucks about fantasy going forward is like, all right, here's your workhorse guy, and here's the guy who's gonna get the goal line work, and it's like, well,
yeah, that's
shit.
not what I was really hoping for. But yeah, like that's
Yeah,
I think the reality of the situation, right? Is I think you're going to see these guys have to be more utilized, and I think you're going to see more split backfields, right? Like I
yeah.
think you're going to see situations where, you're maybe one guy's getting 60% of the carries, the other guy's getting the 40% though.
We're already seeing that, and I don't think that's a terrible system. I think you are doing yourself a disservice if you do not have a reliable second guy, and it doesn't have to be AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones every time, but
Yeah.
like it's got to be somebody decent.
I just think the issue with the running back position is the explosive athletes are going to play wide receiver more because there's more money in it, there's more volume in it, there's more playing time.
Yep.
So, like eventually it's going to be a little bit of a cycle where we're going to see a downtick in quality running backs coming to the NFL. Um, and I think it's going to there's going to be somewhat of a correction in it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get those guys coming in and out. So,
Yeah.
um, cool. That's all I wanted to talk about there. Now I wanted to kind of pick up on a subject that not a lot of people are talking about. Um, who should be buyers for Jonathan Taylor at this point of the season, right? It's easy and fun to talk about it in the offseason and go, oh, this team should definitely be a buyer, or this team. Now that we're 2 weeks in, who do you see really needing to go after and try to get a trade for Jonathan Taylor?
It's a great question because the price tag is obviously still going to be pretty decently high.
I imagine it ends up being like a second is really like I think it's going to be the McCaffrey trade that we saw last year where it was like wasn't it like a second
A
and like
second, fourth, and a sixth or something like that.
something like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I wouldn't be mad to see Baltimore make that phone call. I at least want to look at, especially after like JK healthy. No, JK down for the year. Make the call. See what the price is. Right. See what we could get figured out. Because I don't think that's a bad team to go after it. The issue that you have here is again, who's going to want to pay him the money, right? So it
Yeah.
ticks down a lot of your Super Bowl contenders at that point because nobody's going to want to sit there and fork over the money to go get him. Money out of the question. The Vikings are another team that comes to mind. I know they just traded for Cam Akers, but
Yeah.
who cares? Also, I don't want to take a victory lap on a guy not being good, but like Alexander Madison is not as good as every fantasy manager says he was, and I would like to take a victory lap on that part because I always thought that was asinine that people thought that he could just step in and be Dalvin Cook just because he looks like him does not mean he's going to play like him. The Vikings come to mind. I would not mind Baltimore making that call. Man, I'm trying to think. You're thinking they're probably going to want to send him across the NFC. They're not going to want to see him a ton.
Yeah. I have a really interesting team for you here.
Bring it.
I think the Rams should make that trade.
It's an interesting one. You're not wrong.
I think they have. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but I think they have kind of met beyond those expectations. I'm trying to look up what Jonathan Taylor's cap hit is this year. It's 5.1.
I was like, can't be super high.
Yeah, but I don't know how much of that
the Colts would have to eat.
Yeah, like if they traded him, I'm not sure what that would be. It'd be 4.3 if they traded him. Oh, that's pre 6-1 though. So, so they'd eat probably a majority of that actually.
Yeah, so the money this year, not that big of a factor in the long run.
Yeah, they would eat 800,000 of it, so you'd have 4.3 on the book. So I don't even think it's possible for the Rams to make that trade. I guess it's not possible for the Bills or the Ravens either, but I'm sure they could find a way to free up that space.
Yeah, it's one of those trades where like we're gonna make the room. Like,
yeah,
we'll find the room.
But yeah, I think the Rams are an interesting team to kind of watch on that list. I think that could be a rather intriguing situation. I don't think the Browns will go after him. I think with Jerome Ford and now re-signing Kareem Hunt, I just don't think it makes a ton of sense for that team to want to bring somebody in.
It's just for a 1 year, because like Chubb should be back. As much as I'm worried about him now, like you don't bring in JT when you have Nick Chubb on your team.
Yeah. The only other team that I found somewhat interesting that I thought would kind of make some sense would be the Cincinnati Bengals.
You do a Joe Mixon flip, maybe?
Yeah, like send Joe Mixon back,
Mixon
get off
third.
Yeah, mixing in like a third or something. Yeah, you maybe mix in a second, and then you bring in Jonathan Taylor. You get a little bit younger.
It'd be hard to
Um,
beat that offer.
you know what I mean? Like, and I think that would give the Colts a better feeling about what their running back position will look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least for this season, maybe next season, with mix in there. And for the Bengals, it's a good upgrade. You know what I mean? And it helped take some of the stress off of Joe Burrow's shoulders.
Yeah, and with the guys you currently have, I don't think it makes sense. But given the relationship between the two franchises and your incessant love to rely on the run game, I don't think New England's a crazy spot. I do think it's crazy to see them make. They're not a team that makes that move, even if there
No,
is a necessity for it. They're just not a
if
team that goes out after it.
if you said the asking price was going to be cheaper, like I would say maybe, but the Patriots have been more pass heavy this year than I think I've seen them.
It's true. Yeah.
It's just not typically like that. Jonathan Taylor's not the kind of running back that Bill O'Brien's going to be like, oh my God, I have to have that kind of running back.
Sitting here just trying to cycle through teams like Seattle somewhat comes to mind, but Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet kind of boxed that one
Yeah.
out.
I think they're out. So I think that's a good list of teams that would think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I think the Vikings would be out, especially after adding Cam Akers. Go
I
ahead.
think Detroit, if they don't take Gibbs, is like the perfect spot for me. Like
That would be a great fit
no
for sure.
Gibbs, you stack David Montgomery and JT together.
Yeah,
I
that's a
like
good
that one.
1-2 punch for them. But yeah, I
And
think
honestly, we
other
were
than
just talking
that,
about him being a weapon. Bring him in anyway. Like if the price gets low enough, fuck it. Like,
yeah,
let's go.
I don't think it'll
It
get that
won't.
low.
It won't. But I tell you that we've well, a former coworker for you, current coworker for me, that would lose his effing mind if it happened. So
Yeah, never know. Um, cool beans. We're actually on decent pacing today. Look at us keeping
yeah,
it together after a long trivia too.
yeah. After a long trivia to pull back in.
So we're gonna jump into pump the brakes here. I will not forget my bonus to pump the brakes. We should have plenty of time for it, but I wrote a few less because I want to talk about them a little bit more. I don't want. Yeah, I think
You picked quantity over or quality over quantity, and I think you
yeah.
succeeded very well. So
So I think we should like talk about them a little bit more.
okay.
I don't know. I didn't know how to word this one, but I still like the way this is worded. Okay, Baker Mayfield will make the Buccaneers a playoff team.
Man,
They're 2-0. They have beaten who'd they beat? They beat the Vikings last week, and didn't they beat somebody pretty legit the week before too?
I thought it was the Vikings week 1 and the Bears week 2,
I
right?
think you might be right. Yeah, you're right there.
Um,
Yep.
man, oh, I'm ready to be hurt again. Oh, I'm not going to pump the brakes. I'll put my faith in Baker Mayfield and probably get punched in the mouth again. But
So this is like the interesting thing with the Baker Mayfield conundrum, right? Like everyone saw. I don't know if you saw the meme cycle going around where it's like Baker Mayfield wins us back over. He plays really well for 4 weeks. Everything falls apart. He blames his head coach, and it's like you are here in the cycle. I saw
yeah,
that where it's like he's playing
we're in the
really well.
promising. We're in the
Yeah,
building confidence here.
yeah. So, I don't know. Like they have, I mean, them starting off 2-0 is slightly building confidence in me, but they have a really easy stretch of their schedule kind of after, I don't know what week that is, but really like realistically hard teams they have. They have the Eagles this week. That'll be a really tough game. They have the Saints, which I mean, depending, like one of those teams is real, one of those teams isn't, right? And I
Yeah,
think the Saints, to me, at 2-0, have been a little bit more. There isn't as much substance there, is what I'll say. With it,
yeah,
barely beating Carolina,
and then barely beating Tennessee.
barely beating Tennessee. They held on to a thread both those games. We always say it ends up going 50-50 in those one-score games. Go ahead.
Their defense is what makes that there. And Tampa Bay's defense is well enough talented too. They're not playing well enough right now. Whereas New Orleans, it took Tom Brady 3 years to beat the Saints in a
Yeah.
Buccaneers jersey for a reason, right? They planned it well. You know, they didn't have a lot of success in those years outside of being 5-1 against Tom Brady, but that's still something to hang your hat on as a defense, right? So I find it hard to believe that they're not going to, handle Baker Mayfield, but they've just been squeaking wins back in, the last 2 weeks. So
I'm just going to jump into the last 7 games of the season for them. They are at the Colts. They have the Panthers at home. They are at the Falcons, at the Packers, have the Jaguars at home, have the Saints at home, and then they're at the Panthers, right? Like that's a 7-game stretch that, I mean, at this rate, they could go 5-2, 6-1 in. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And we're already talking 8 wins right there.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like is how many division games they have late there. Because I think that's the route for them to the playoffs. I don't really see them being a wild card team. I
Yeah.
think they scrape that division with 9 or 10 wins. That's their road, not 11 wins and a wild card team, So
Yeah, we both had this division close, and we talked a lot about how it was close for like all the wrong reasons.
yeah.
Now looking back at it, it could be a little bit more competitive than we both thought. You had them going 6-11, and we both kind of said like somewhere in that ballpark. You know what I mean? Maybe win 2 or 3 more games here or there, but like they might very well be a 10
They're a
win
third of
team.
the way there.
They could be a 10. They're 20% of the way to being a 10-win
Yeah.
team. I mean, and they've got a lot of winnable games. Like the fact that you play the Colts twice still, that's in your favor right there.
Yeah.
Like the Colts have played well, but who knows if Anthony Richards, like if he has a second concussion, they might shut him down for the year, right? Like they're not playing for anything. So
Yeah.
or they don't have the Colts twice. Sorry. The fact that they have the Panthers twice.
Panthers twice still.
Panthers don't look good at all, but they do have the Colts still. They have the Texans still. They have a lot of games where
They have the AFC South.
Yeah.
That's a plus outside of the Jags, really. So
it'll be interesting. Are you so you're ready to get heartbroken again and
I am.
Baker Mayfield in the first half of the season?
I've had faith in him since 2018. I will always remember draft day and like being on the radio with my 2 buddies that we were doing the show with at the time, and Darnold was the guy. And I said I liked Baker. I was like, the accuracy, the confidence, I liked it. I liked him from day one. And I remember we were at a Royals game like for a school trip and getting drafted number 1. I don't. People were watching a White Sox Royals game on like a Tuesday night or Thursday night, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is this guy yelling about?" I was like, "Baker Mayfield, motherfucker, number 1 overall." So yeah, I am ready to get hurt again, and it's probably going to happen. But I'm perfectly okay with it. So
yeah,
I'm accepting the fact beforehand.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. Like, I wanted to like Baker Mayfield. Again, we talked about having a coach that believes in you. I always thought the Cleveland gave up. Like he took him to the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Like
I will always think they gave up on him way too early.
And here's a comparison I think you'll really, really like. I think Baker Mayfield is Derek Carr, but he talks too much. I think they're in this range of like 16 to, they could be anywhere from 16 to 8. They can be a top 8 quarterback on their very best season, right?
Yeah, Derek Carr's MVP season was probably maybe even a top 6 guy.
Top 6 guy, right? And like Baker Mayfield, the year he made his playoffs, everyone was like, "Oh, he's a top 10 guy."
Top 10 guy, 100%, no doubt.
But like their low end is more middle of the pack is the problem.
Yep.
And I think the difference is Derek Carr is the team guy, right? And everybody loves Derek Carr and like, oh, he's the kind of guy I'd want to have.
That's the guy I want to play for.
Yep. Yeah, right. And then Baker Mayfield talks trash and he's great with the media and does 35 commercials. And I think ultimately that's what's made him cycle around so much.
I think players, I do think guys want to play for Baker Mayfield. Guys want to play for Baker Mayfield when they're on the field, whereas off the field they're like, shut up, versus the opposite Derek Carr. Like, they kind of want to go for it all the time. But like, you remember the clip, like Baker running through that corner and everything. Like, that is as an offensive lineman, like I'm gonna destroy this defensive tackle across from the next play, because I'm fired up right now, right? So I think he has his moments, but I do think you're right. I think that's a great comparison.
I think he's in this interesting thing where I think he is a league starter. Like I genuinely think he has a really good chance to just continue to start for a long time. And I think he's going to kind of be Ryan Fitzpatrick in a lot of ways, where he's going to trick teams. He's going to have one really great season and they're going to sign him to like a 2 or 3 year deal. Yeah. And then they're going to get into year 2 of that deal, cut him, trade him, do something.
Cut him. Then, he's a backup somewhere, takes the job, 4 good games. Like,
exactly. Just like it's just going to keep cycling. So, I mean, maybe he finds his long-term home, but I've been impressed, more impressed than I thought I would be. That division was tough for me to pick. I believed a lot in the Buccaneers, and Baker is making me go, man, did I make a mistake picking the Falcons? I'm still riding with that pick, but it's definitely more interesting for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Um, let's jump into this one. Brandon Staley won't last the whole season as the head coach of the Chargers.
Oh, this is a good one. This is um I'm gonna pump the brakes. I think he'll make it the whole year. It's gonna have to be like drastically bad for them to can him in the middle of the year. I don't like him getting all upset when somebody brought up the Jags game at the podium. I think if I'm gonna ask my quarterback to be composed, I need my head coach to be composed, man. Here's the situation. You blew a really bad playoff game, man. We're going to talk about it. Like, it doesn't matter that it's last year. I understand you don't want to talk about it, right? It's embarrassing. It was your fault, but that's why we're talking about it. Because your team's 0-2 with, and that was that was one of my favorite tweets I saw this week. It was just Justin Herbert in hypothetical situations. It was just a picture of Tom Brady like hype on the sidelines. Because it's true. Like we were sitting here like, well, if Justin Herbert had this or Justin Herbert in this situation, he's top 3 guy, right? We always talk about how hypothetically good Justin Herbert is. And he is good on the field. The issue is the Chargers are 0-2. The other thing is I see him all the time. I think it's ESPN. I saw a TikTok of it. He was talking about like this week being like an elimination game for the Chargers. They're like, if they start 0-3, man, kiss the season goodbye. And I was like, what are we talking about?
It's actually more than you probably would think it is.
I do think there's a little bit to it, but to say a team is eliminated from the playoffs, now the Bears go 0-3 this weekend. Yeah, they're probably eliminated from the playoffs. This is the effing Chargers we're talking about right now, you know. But
yeah. I want to look up what it is. I think it's okay. So the 1992 San Diego Chargers remain the only 0-4 team to ever make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't say 0-3 is the nail in the coffin, but I think 0-4 is you're out. Like there's been one team in the history of the NFL who's done it.
That's fair. Yeah, I can see that. Who do they play week 4? That's the question. Who the Chargers got on the docket for week 4? If they lose this weekend, who's the team that's going to send them home in week 4?
The Chargers have
the Raiders
being so slow. Vikings and Raiders. So and the Vikings are in a very similar spot where Kirk Cousins is playing well, but the team is losing.
They're 0-2 as well, aren't they? They're both walking into this week thinking like they need a win bad. Here's the bad news for Chargers fans, right? Say you rebound, right? 2-2, right? We beat the Raiders. We beat the Vikings. Bad news. You have Dallas and Kansas City after that. So, but then you go to Chicago. So, it's like, it's not all bad, but like solid chance that this team might be 2-4 after week 6. Like it is possible at this road, All
right. So you ready for the stats on this matchup? And we'll get back into the actual subject of this conversation in a minute, but it's okay to have tangents on this one. So Kirk Cousins is second in the NFL with passing yards right now. He is at 708. So he's averaging about 354 a game. Justin Herbert has 534. So he's averaging like 267. Kirk Cousins is the touchdown passing leader in the NFL at the moment with 6. He's tied for first with Jordan Love.
Wow.
And then Justin Herbert is 9th. So, yeah, I know. I wouldn't have expected Jordan Love there. So, now, obviously, stats don't tell the whole story here. I think Kurt is playing better than the team is, and I think Justin Herbert is playing better than his team is. So
that's the norm for him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Kirk Cousins just, I don't know. It's always Kirk. So weird. Oh, for Justin Herbert.
That's the normal for Herbert. Yeah. For Kirk, this is the influx. He's not used to this part of it. But
so let's get back to the point on hand here of Brandon Staley. I don't think will last the whole season because I think the replacement's in-house.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. That's a really good point. Again,
the Stanos family brought in Kellen Mond, and it wouldn't be, again, this conspiracy theory. No fact check here. Go ahead.
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. Why did I say Kellen? What is going on with me in names? Dan Campbell is the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys.
That's Cowboys.
I'm making whoever I want up.
It's easy.
Guess what, Kellen Mond? You just got cut from the Browns, and now you're the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. Congrats on your promotion, sucker.
That's funny.
Jeez Louise. But yeah, point being here is I think they brought him in with the mindset of, hey, this is probably going to be our next head coach.
100%. That's what your mindset should be.
And no fact here, but this might have been one of those offensive coordinator hires that the head coach had no say. They're like, "Hey, this is your new offensive coordinator. Congratulations!" And he was just
Yeah.
like, "That's not my guy. I thought I was going to have a say." They're like, "Nope, nope. This
Nope.
is it."
This is it.
Yep.
There you go. I
Um,
agree with you wholeheartedly
so
because
and
what
I
else do you make that move for? Right.
well, and I think here's the other thing I think is really interesting about it. Let's say they're 4-4 at week 8, right? You fire Brandon Staley, and then you just name Kellen Moore. I almost did Mond again, dog. Jeez. You make Kellen Moore the interim coach. You get 8 weeks of a job interview for him. How
True.
good can you be? You've got the
Bring it on.
team. You know what the weaknesses. You know what the strengths are.
It's
Like
not impossible for you to make the playoffs with 4-4 either.
you still, yeah. Like the team's competitive. They win. They go 5-4 in their last, or they go 6-3, something like that in the last 9 games. I think it's really interesting. I
That's
think
not
I
I
think
didn't think about that.
I
No,
think it could be a situation where you get a free interview.
I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, he's my second least favorite head coach in the league, and he is very close to being one. Like
Who's
McCarthy.
one?
McCarthy.
Oh, yeah.
Staley should be one on that list. I would say Staley's probably one. Like, I think he should have lost his job after the Jags game last year because, again, we talk about that all the time. Like, you have a window to win a Super Bowl, and when you have a young, talented quarterback like this, you cannot waste years on being cordial and not firing a guy too early. Hey, man, the point is to win football games, and this head coach does not help me accomplish that goal. Get him the fuck out. I don't care if it's early. I don't care. Whatever. The point's to win football games. Not only are you not attributing to that fact, you are a detriment to that goal right now. Get out. They're also one of the only 2 teams, I believe, in NFL history to have the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense in the league and miss the playoffs because of how awful their special teams unit is and how awful their clock management was 2 years ago in 2021. So Justin Herbert threw for 5,000 yards in a sophomore campaign, had the best offense in the game statistically, and he had the best defense to back it, and they still missed the playoffs.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Anthony Lynn was fired. But again, there's so many parallels now I'm sitting here thinking about it between McCarthy and Staley of, hey, man, we fired this guy because we didn't like these 2 things about him. Here's your new head coach. He does the exact same effing thing that we fired the last guy for. He can't manage the clock, and he can't figure out how to put a decent special teams unit together. Same thing with McCarthy in Dallas. Hey, we have a boring offense, and we can't get you to elevate our quarterback to the next level. Hey, here's a guy who just got canned for having a boring offense and not being able to win more than 1 Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, So, but I don't want to die too much. We're going to come back around to him.
So. Don't stop talking about McCarthy. God, you're stealing my thunder here. All right, we're back. Little technical difficulties there. Not what went wrong. So this podcast might now be video only, and we've been talking like it's been video this whole time. Very well could be either or at this point. But I think our point stands earlier on Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore. Didn't say Kellen Mond this time. So Kellen
Look at
Moore.
you.
Okay,
It actually wasn't technical difficulties. Tim was just trying to make sure that he could say more and not Mond the whole time.
Yeah. We're trying to re-edit it. It's just been a mess. So I don't know. I will say, like, the hardest part about this thing is like all the technical difficulties you run in. Like, once you get over that and like do editing and stuff, that's not the hard part. It's just fucking trying to record this remotely has been a bigger challenge than I would expect. So
yeah.
Okay, for this last headline, I'm gonna provide some context to it.
Okay.
But we dump on Mike McCarthy a lot on this podcast.
Not we. I.
Yeah, you dump on Mike McCarthy.
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. Here's my pump the brakes for you. Sean Payton is Mike McCarthy.
Ooh.
So let me read
Oh,
you
fuck
off.
you. Okay. Firstly, God damn it, I hate you. Continue.
You ready? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the regular season, Mike McCarthy's record is 155 and 97 losses. Sean Payton in the regular season is 152 and 91 losses. So we're within 6 games of each other there. In the postseason, Mike McCarthy is 11 and 10, so about a 500 record there. And Sean Payton is 9 and 8 in the postseason. Both had elite quarterbacks for a long time, was only able to take that elite quarterback to 1 Super Bowl. Okay.
Did Green
per
Bay make 2 and lose 1?
Green Bay, you're right. Green Bay made 2, won
Still,
1.
they
Yeah.
both have 1 ring to show
One
for it.
ring to show for it.
Yeah.
Who did they lose to in that Super Bowl? Now you got me questioning that.
They beat Pittsburgh for their 1. Um, I don't know.
Did they lose another one? I don't know. Besides the point.
I'll look at that. You keep talking.
Yeah. So very similar records. When it comes to the regular season, both have not had a ton of success outside of their like Hall of Fame first ballot quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
That's where we've both seen. I don't know if I'd say McCarthy has struggled because I don't think that's necessarily fair. Um, but I think, obviously towards the end of New Orleans, it wasn't kind of what we expected to see out of Sean Payton anymore. We're 2 weeks into the Denver Broncos experience. So it might be a little early to kind of jump down, but did they lose? Did they?
No.
No,
Yeah,
only
they
one.
just the last one they went to before that was Favre in '98. So yeah, they were both 1-1 in Super. This
Or
maybe
1-0. Yeah, that's what I thought. What?
did the Saints beat the Colts for theirs? Right?
They beat the Colts,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, they beat the Colts. So Sean Payton's 0-2 in Denver. So he's not been able to magically fix Russell Wilson, kind of like everyone hoped he would be able to.
Yeah.
But, I mean, tell me how they're not the same guy.
I mean, when you sit down and look at the numbers of it, I do think there's an eye test factor to it. And I think, like,
that's an interesting argument coming from right now. Dallas Cowboys look like maybe one of the most dominant teams in the league, and the Denver Broncos look like one of the worst.
I will agree with you on that point and counter with what did we say was the reason that Dallas is succeeding and why they should succeed is the defense going forward,
True.
right? So there is a hair there. You're not wrong, and I actually, now that you sit here and say this, I think Caitlin's dad told me this because I remember we were talking about it, and he's a Cowboys fan. And I was sharing how much I can't stand, Mike McCarthy in Dallas and everything, and he was talking about how he wanted Sean Payton. He was like, he found an article, and he was like, wait, they're actually just the same guy. I'm a little stumped. I won't lie to you.
It's interesting because I raved about the Sean Payton hiring in Denver, right? We both did. We said, "Oh, this is if there is a fix, this is the fix.
This is it." Yeah, and every team is dumb for not trying. I sat here and said that Dallas was dumb for not moving off McCarthy to go get him, and you're sitting here looking at it and you're like, career statistics are the same, the number wise and everything. There's really not much, without sitting here and really just trying to nitpick it and be like, well, this year the defense was ranked 16th instead of McCarthy's was 10th, and it's.
I will say, like, Sean Payton did have Drew Brees throwing for 5,000 yards, and I'm obviously a more consistent. We talked about
seven. I think 7 times he threw for 5,000 yards, maybe 6.
6, something like that. Yeah, like quite. I mean, and Rodgers never really eclipsed that.
Rodgers never touched 4,700 in a year, which is still mind-boggling me to find that out now.
Yeah.
But.
So slightly different, but kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you would say, oh, you had a guy throw for 5,000 yards 6 times. Okay, that guy has to have a bunch of MVPs with you.
He has to have an MVP along the way, at least one or two.
And he has none and only 1 Super Bowl.
Not one. The other guy, 4-time league MVP, 3-time.
4-time. I think he's 4-time because he's won it. He won it not last year, but he won it 2 years ago. And then he won it the year before that. I think he went back to back, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. I believe so. Yeah.
He won one earlier in his career. So, I mean, like, really, it's kind of a wash when we're talking statistics here. Like, you know what I mean? Because Brees just has a higher volume when it comes to that kind of stuff. So,
I think, again, like, if you want to sit down and nitpick, I do think New Orleans' defenses were notoriously not good through the Drew Brees years, which I do think. That's why you see more passing yards, right? That's why obviously he's going to have to sling it around a lot more if your defense isn't going to be able to hold. But
Rodgers won MVP 4 times.
Yeah, that's what I was
21,
thinking.
14. But to be fair, only 2 of those were with McCarthy. The other 2 were with
LaFleur.
With LaFleur, because 21
back-to-back years.
Yeah, 2020 and 2021 would have been with LaFleur. So he won an 11 and 14 with Mike McCarthy.
Still. Yeah, it's interesting when you sit down and look at it like that. But again, I do think that there's an eye test factor of what you see on an offense, right? Like, just because the Vikings offense statistically is better than the Niners offense, if I were to ask you which offense you'd rather have, like which of those offenses would you rather be a fan of if I'm trying to win a lot of games, I would take San Fran's every single time, right? Talent wise, coaching wise, the whole nine, despite the numbers telling you otherwise. So, but it is interesting, yeah, because especially again when you look at the comparisons and the reactions we had for both, I sit here and dump on McCarthy all the time, and we
Yeah.
both raved about Peyton. And statistically,
And they're very similar guys,
right
right?
here,
Like,
they're
yeah.
literally right here. The eye test is the only thing that really separates them. There's
The
not anything statistically that does.
so the other point I kind of want to make in this argument is like the Belichick Brady argument is kind of, I feel like, on the same tracks as these, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like, oh, the coach doesn't have a lot of success. The one thing I will say is Belichick's defenses have stayed the same, right? Like it's not like, oh, Brady left and then the defenses felt like Belichick has been able to be great defensively no matter what. Now, to be fair, offensive head coaches, the quarterback is the driving factor
The
behind
driving
that
force.
more than there is like there's less of a variable there with a defense, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, still, like I think it has to be said that we view these guys like Kyle Shanahan's made anyone great. You know what I mean?
Anyone and everyone look great at quarterback.
Look great at quarterback. So it's really tough to like say, okay, so are we now saying Kyle Shanahan's in a better tier than Sean Payton, Mike McCarthy, right? Like I think because you would have said before, I think Sean Payton's in the same tier with Kyle Shanahan. And the point I'm trying to make is it's probably a tier below. Like I think Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan are consistently great in the offense, no matter like because Sean McVay at this point, we've seen Jared Goff be great, and we've also seen Matthew Stafford be great.
Yep.
I mean, Stafford's obviously a different level of talent at quarterback than Goff, but
Still, you're pulling it
he's
out of a
still
34-year-old at that point, you
yeah,
know?
he still elevated two guys into like I mean, arguably one of Stafford's probably second best season in his career at 34.
Yeah.
And then
Cooper
you know,
Cup's best year, the second best receiving season of all time, came,
yeah,
from a McVay offense.
from a McVay offense. So like I think the point I'm trying to make here is I don't think Peyton's in as high of a tier as we think. And I don't think McCarthy's as in low of a tier as we think. I think they're kind of more in the middle and more comparable than a lot of people probably have been thinking about them.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's an interesting conversation for sure.
It is.
Um,
Yeah, it really is.
so cool. Let's talk about some gambling here.
Oh, yeah.
So if you or anyone you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4700. I don't know why I read that in such weird numbers. Professionals are available 24 hours a day to help take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. Um, Man, two polar opposite weeks for you and I.
Yep.
I went 2-1. The only one that didn't hit was Falcons -1.5 versus the Packers. The Falcons won by 1 point.
That's actually
That's
crazy.
that's rather unfortunate.
Such a bad beat.
That's a tough break. Bucks -2.5 versus the Bears hit. 49ers Rams over 45 hit. So that puts me at 4-2. Not a bad week for me.
Yeah, obviously, and I knew this was coming. The come down from the 3-0 start to the year. Like anytime you get a 3-0 week, it's like, wow, I'm probably gonna suck next week, most likely. Didn't think I'd suck this bad. I wouldn't have sucked this bad if McVay didn't kick field goal as time expired. But the Chargers -3 versus Tennessee obviously didn't hit. The Chargers are 0-2 and have disappointed in both games so far. San Francisco -7 versus the Rams. Again, it pushed because of a last second for no reason field goal by the Rams
Yeah.
just to push that bet. I would also be 4-2 right now had that field goal not went in. But it is what it is. And then Detroit and Seattle under 47.5. Again, I thought Detroit was going to kind of try to reestablish themselves defensively, and they look really bad on defense right now. And that definitely attributed to the over hitting in that game. So a 0-2-1 week for me is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call any pushes are just going to go down as ties, in my opinion.
Sure.
So I'm going to call a 3-2-1. Technically, a rally probably should be just a 3-3 because a push isn't a win, and that's all that really matters. We're here for wins. But I'm going to call it a 3-2-1 week for me, or total through the 2 weeks. So, what do you got for this week?
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a tougher week. I think
It
week
was.
2, week 3 is when you start to like figure out the balance of everything, and I think the lines get a lot harder.
Yeah.
Um, I will say I think I told you when we were picking this, I almost faded like I think 2 of your picks.
Two of them, yeah.
So I think this week is going to be very, very interesting. I think it's one of those. I think the lines are coming back down to earth a little bit more, and we have a little bit better of an idea. Not
Or they're
figured out.
stretched. Or it's
Yeah,
I don't think I'll ever outside of college football, I don't think I'll ever feel comfortable in a minus 12.5 situation at the
in
NFL
the
level.
NFL,
I
no, no,
just
no.
I
I don't
can't bet on
touch
it.
those lines. Yeah,
No, like, and you're like, really, you can't touch, Kansas City versus Chicago minus 12.5. And I'm like, I
no.
can't, because if they go up 3 touchdowns and they pull Patty in the fourth and then the Bears score with 2 minutes left, here we are. I just lost money.
I mean, set that conversation aside. When has Kansas City looked good this season?
Also true. Like,
They haven't looked good for I don't even think more than a
they've
quarter. They
they've looked
struck
good. They haven't looked great. They're not the
right.
Kansas City of the last 2 years, which is crazy to say because we thought last year was going to be that year.
Struggled
And
against Detroit, but we said, "Oh, they're missing Chris Jones, they're
Kelsey and
missing
Chris Jones.
Kelsey, and yeah, like it'll be fixed next week." They get Kelsey and Chris Jones back, and I mean, I know I like the Jaguars a lot, but like, I don't know if that game was as much about the Jaguars being good as it was about the Chiefs just not being on good timing and getting themselves together.
Both of their games this year, they did not deserve to win.
Yeah, yeah,
So
both of those. Like it was a
they're
crazy
one and
game,
one.
but yeah, it wasn't quite what I thought here. So yeah, I don't think it's crazy, but my 3 picks for this week are going to be Pats minus 2.5 versus the Jets. Um, I hate picking my teams to win. I really do. Um, say what you will, Patriots looked competitive against the Eagles. Man, who'd they even play last week on Sunday night? Oh, they looked competitive against the Dolphins as well. There it is. Um, I think the biggest thing for me is I do take the Patriots typically against young quarterbacks who struggle. If the Jets think about throwing as much as they did last week against Dallas, I think it's going to be a lot of the same result. I think New England's defense is good, and I think their offense is better than it was last year. So I think I think they're going to get eaten alive if they think about dropping Zach Wilson back more than 20 times in this game. Because as much as we say, oh, Belichick's great against rookie quarterbacks, he is. Sam Darnold was still seeing ghost in like year 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So like I don't think it always goes away like unless a guy is actually getting better. So I think for Zach
It has
Wilson,
to be an MVP candidate young quarterback to kind of break that. So like Lamar broke that. Guys like Justin Herbert, Zach Wilson
yeah.
is nowhere near that level.
Now the reason that I still like it's only 2.5, so the Patriots just have to win by a field goal.
I like that.
Jets might run the ball, and it might just be like a slugfest game, but I still like the Pats to come out and win this one. Defense, I mean, the Jets' defense is better, but not that much better, not so much better that I'm like, oh gosh, you have to lean this way. And the
If it
Patriots'
was
offense is significantly better with Mac Jones than they are with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, if it was Patriots minus 3.5, I'm like, ugh, I don't know. Because
Yeah,
I see 17-14. Like, that's my score prediction here. So minus 2.5, I'm all for it.
yeah.
3 or 3.5, it's not that I'm worried about losing it. It's just not a surefire thing at that point.
And it's the same conversation. Like we have this conversation week after week. If it's a field goal, it makes a world of difference versus 2.5
100%.
here.
100%.
Um, Other game I have here: Commanders plus 6.5 versus the Bills. This is a little bit of the wave of Sam Howell played really well last week. Right, gets the overtime win against the Broncos. Same conversation we just had with the Kansas City Chiefs is true for the Buffalo Bills. I have yet to see them play well and play
Yeah.
like a really good, well put together game.
Like a Super Bowl contender like they should be.
Should be, right? So, if you're going to give me close enough to a touchdown at 6.5 with the Commanders, I think that game's a slugfest and it's like a 3-4 point game. So that's why I'm going to go that route.
I like that pick a lot. I almost took it. I was sitting down and just looking. The Bills defense statistically has played pretty well, and I think if there's a team that might struggle when a defense starts to play well, it might be that inexperienced offense. The X factor is the run game. When
Yeah.
Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson have it working on the ground, that's why they've won football games, because Sam Howell's not having to do it 35 times. So they can get the run game going. I really, really like that bet, but the Bills defense has been a little stout, and you got to nobody in that locker room is like blowing this game off. They're like, holy
Yeah.
shit. They're thinking the same thing we are. Like, this is not the
This is an
level of
interesting
football.
game for
This is
sure.
not the level of football we need to be playing right now. So, like, I'd like this bet a lot. And I think the only way it doesn't hit is if the Bills just come out and just finally play like a Super Bowl contender and win by 30, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I will say, like, the Commanders have done a fairly good job of taking care of the ball, is the other thing.
Yeah.
Whereas the Bills have not. And yeah,
They've been awful at it.
when you see that, like, to me, that's the scariest thing of like being like, okay, the line's at 6.5. Buffalo doesn't take care of the ball very well. You
It's
know,
true.
those are
That's a very
not,
good point.
it's not a good recipe for me at a 6.5 line. Now, I think the Bills should be favored by 6.5. I do. I just don't think, we're quite to that point here. Um, my final pick, Rams versus Bengals over 43.5. I just think it's too low. I really do. I think the Rams offense has been way better than we all thought it was going to be. And I think
100%.
Joe Burrow is long overdue for a big game.
Yeah, if the only reason that doesn't hit is if Burrow doesn't play, which I still think is up in the air, but it's still like a 75% chance he plays on Monday night. So if Burrow doesn't play, that one obviously is probably not going to go. But if Burrow's out there, should be a pretty easy hit on that over.
Yeah.
Definitely feels like one that should be like 46.5, 47.
I agree. I really do.
All right. So over to my side, we talked about not picking field goals. And for the second week in a row, I'm going to take a team -3. I would love to get Detroit at -2.5 versus Atlanta, but probably going to be -3. Um, I'm purely betting on Dan Campbell and the boys bouncing back. That is what this pick is for. This is, if you have faith in the Lions, this is a pick I feel confident in, right? Truth be told, if Atlanta gets it going on the ground, it's probably not going to be a pretty game. But hopefully Ben Johnson and the boys can get it thrown around. It's, beating the Falcons by more than 3 points shouldn't be that much of an issue. But if it turns into a shootout, it's actually probably their best chance because I do think they win the shootout every single time. But if it's a ground and pound 24-21 game, it's going to be a tough one for the Lions to cover that -3 spread. But again, I have all faith. Dan Campbell has given his best of best kneecaps,
Rah-rah speech.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is a lot more than kneecaps being ripped off in that pregame speech from what he's going to give them when it comes to game time on Sunday. New Orleans +1.5 versus Green Bay. I actually had Green Bay -1.5 here against New Orleans. With Jordan Love being tied for the league lead in passing touchdowns at 6, which I did not know until you said it earlier.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But I was leaning Green Bay because I have heard that he's played well, which has surprised me. I did not think he was going to be the guy, and he's shown that he's damn sure not as bad as everybody thought he was from what we saw, a year from the backup games he played behind Rodgers. The thing here is it's a close game, right? I can't believe that you actually had a -1.5 pick that missed and they still won. That's crazy. I didn't think that day would ever come last week
Yeah.
with Atlanta. Was it Atlanta last week too?
It
Am I
was
betting?
Atlanta. Yeah. It was a crazy game. I don't think I watched this one. I think I watched the post highlights of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, did it go to overtime? I don't think it did.
There was an overtime game this weekend though, wasn't
Yeah, there was. It wasn't this one, but
there?
yeah.
New Orleans and Green Bay. What I'm seeing here is again the Saints defense is where they make their money at, and when it comes down to a close game, and one side has a better defense and a more experienced quarterback, being at 1.5, I'm going to take it. Right, all they have to do is win the game. Right, it's +1.5.
True.
The 1 point win gets it for me this week. So I like New Orleans in this game. I think the defense is really what's going to be the tone setter for them. And Derek Carr just has to take care of the football after that. I mean, that's the two simple keys to victory there. Shut Jordan Love down. Don't turn the ball over. Win a football game. Right. I've Philly -4.5 versus Tampa Bay here as well. I think it is in Tampa Bay. Obviously, that's the only reason this line is so close. And we both and I myself said I'm ready to get hurt again. I'm going to put my confidence in Baker Mayfield. Not the defense I want to do it against, not the offense that I want to play when my defense, is spending all this money and we have all these superstars, right? You look at the Bucks defense, Madden, to put it into Madden terms, like 3 or 4 guys that have X factors or superstars on this team, and they can't stop anybody for
True.
nothing. And DeAndre Swift is coming off 120, 150 yard performance on Thursday Night Football last week.
150 yards, I want to say. He balled out.
If they can keep Vita Vea out of the backfield, they're going to have their way with the secondary all day long. Philly should be a pretty easy cover at -4.5. I'm damn sure hoping, because I need a bounce back week.
175 for DeAndre Swift.
That's
The
fucking
one
insane.
thing I'll say, so the 2 picks I thought about fading you on were Detroit -3 versus Atlanta. I almost took Atlanta +3, but I hate field goal games. The only reason I didn't touch it, but I do like Atlanta in that game. So that's kind of why I like them plus the points, because the weakness of Detroit is, like you said, their defense. The strong point of Atlanta is their offense.
Yeah.
Philly -4.5 versus Tampa Bay. The weakest point of Philadelphia is their cornerbacks. So the matchup of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for me is a little bit scary. And this is as a guy who's supported the Eagles through thick and thin. That concerns me a little bit. It really, really, really does. So I think 4.5 is interesting. I think Philly's a better team, but I think Tampa Bay could put up more points than we expect.
Yeah, I agree. It's a chippy week, like we said. There's not a lot of razor thin ones where you're making a lot of money line picks, and there's a lot of the super inflated ones where anything over a touchdown is hard to feel confident about in the NFL. Because again, I talk about that stat. I hate game winning drives, because in the third quarter you're down 3, you go down, score a touchdown, take a 4-point lead, and then nobody scores in the fourth. That's a game winning drive. I hate that, right? And that doesn't cover at that point. It doesn't cover a 7-point spread.
True.
For just getting that touchdown while you're down 3. So Vegas is catching on. It's that time of the year where it's going to get tougher. I unfortunately fell victim to it a week early, so I've got to try to bounce back this week. But it's gonna be a fun one.
Well, cool. Yeah. If you made it this far, we appreciate you. I don't think we shouted out the YouTube at the beginning here, but we are on YouTube at Red Zone Talk Pod.
Yes.
Is where you'll find us on the YouTube. Hopefully this is a video. We'll see. It just depends on what the first half of this podcast ends up looking like.
Yeah.
That'll be the interesting story. We'll see if that comes together. But if you made it this far, we appreciate you listening. Anything else you want to add there, Mr. Owen?
No, like we said, Instagram page is still up, right? TikTok page is up. Content coming soon. Still working on things like that. So get to us on YouTube, Red Zone Talk Pod, Instagram, Red Zone Talk. Get to me on Twitter, Owen_Burke. Wherever you feel like contacting, whatever is your best mode of communication, we got all the apps covered, right? So we are here, ready to answer questions, ready to have a lot of fun around the beautiful game of football. So that's going to do it for episode 6. We'll see you guys next week for episode 7. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you then.